Good evening. Welcome to day 4 of Ignite Your Soul Connection. This week we're talking about Our Children Matter. And I don't know if you've been able to join us for the other 3 days, but we have been having an awesome time. And any time that you don't get to be on here with us, you can always go and look at our YouTube channel called Ignite Your Soul Connection. My name is Shemsu-t. Other people call me Rita Stewart. I am the owner of Master Force and the founder of Master Force International Leadership Academy. We have been providing this wonderful discussion since 2011, really making a difference in the spiritual aptitude of our community. We're doing this as a gift. So none of the people speaking on any of these events have been paid. They're doing it purely out of their contribution and generosity of their soul. Now, I want you to consider that many of these people are your neighbors. So they can make a big difference for you. It's a lot of people that can assist you. So we wanted to introduce you to a few of them. Tonight, we're going to be speaking about the power of grandparents. And we will be talking to two of my favorite people on the planet. You'll get to meet them in just a moment. And everyone this week has been certified in Master Force, our academy, and through our life coaching course. So you get to hear a lot of different things in a lot of different ways that they've used this methodology, not just Master Force, but even their own life experiences and some of their own education has made a difference in how they have mitigated themselves through life. So, and without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to each one of them. And I'm going to start with my longtime friend, Greg Stanton. Greg, can you come in and introduce yourself and let people know about you and where you are, and then also your experience with Master Force?
Awesome. Well, good evening, family and friends. I'm so excited to be in this space tonight. I thought you was going to introduce Shalanda as your longtime friend. I'm Greg Stanton. I also go by the name. My alias is Greg Stanton. My name is Asar Aten, and I'm a grandfather of 10 grandchildren, 4 adult children. I'm the patriarch slash matriarch of the family at this time. I've been involved with Master Force coaching since about 2010, and the relationship with Master Force uh, goes farther than that. I'm a by trade, I'm a therapist, but when I had the opportunity to engage Master Force, I really let my license lapse because I found that the work I was doing as a coach was much more powerful, and the restrictions that was put on me as a licensed therapist. I make it real clear when I engage clients that I am not a therapist. I'm a life coach. In addition to being a life coach, I have over 30 years of pastoral experience in the traditional Christian pathway, which has shifted over the last 15 years. Now, I'm more into a non-traditional approach to spirituality. So I'm educated in the area of counseling psychology, a master's in counseling psychology, and also master's degree in adult education. And I also been to the community, which I have a PhD in. And so that's a little bit about me. Currently, I reside in St. Louis, Missouri, but my heart is in Chicago, Illinois.
Yay, thank you.
Hmm?
And I introduced you as my longtime friend because I've been knowing you for over 30 years.
Yes, yes, yes.
Now, Shalanda happens to be my BFF.
Oh, okay, okay. And that just so happened to be we shared a birthday.
That's right. You're
Yeah.
my birthday mate. We're actually probably very much soulmates. You know.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
I
yes,
definitely know that we have a very strong connection there, and we share the same birthday, and we
yeah,
both happen to be a Queen of Spades. So,
yeah.
yeah, we have a lot of connections. So yeah. And so now let me introduce you to my BFF, my best friend. Oh no, I know that's wrong. But anyway, Shalanda, can you unmute yourself and let everybody know about you and where you are, what you do, and how you've interacted with Master Force over this time?
Good evening, family and friends. My name is Shalanda Bouler. I am a fitness coach. I'm also a Master Force Academy graduate, life coach that encompasses my fitness, nutrition, group, senior, I had to write it all down, senior training, youth trainer, group trainer, just all around elite trainer, and I'm certified. Coach to keep our bodies healthy and strong. Let's see what else. I also work, which I am at the end of my working lifespan. I'm claiming two and a half to 3 more years, and I will be officially retired. I am looking forward to moving out of the country at that point, and I'm excited about that. So I'm in the process of learning a new language, Swahili, because I'm going to Africa, back to the motherland. I've been a grandmother for, it'll be 6 years in August. I have 2 grandchildren. And what else? I'm a fun-loving, still young at heart, girlfriend.
You're also a chaplain.
So that's who I am right now.
But you forgot to
Oh
say.
yeah, I forgot. I am a chaplain. In the untraditional way, I am a chaplain. Yes, yes. Thank you for reminding me.
Yes, I don't know why I do that all the time, but I think that's such a great gift that you offer in that capacity. That's why I do that. So thank you both for just your time here and in your experience over life. You know, I believe it'll be a great conversation tonight for everybody. And I want to start off with asking the question. Can we say that there is a history of grandparents, or has there just always been grandparents because, you know, children are born from other parents? How is there a history of grandparents? What would you say? What does that look like?
Well, I say there is a history just by um, virtue of when children have children, then you become a grandparent. But I think the roles have lost the importance when you look historically in the African community. Grandparents, parents, or Mze elders, not necessarily call them grandparents, but Mze wise elders had an instrumental role in the upbringing of the children, in both the males and the females. And I'm seeing a return to that as I talk to individuals within the age span that I'm in. They're embracing grandparenting in a entirely different way than we may have observed in our grandparents.
Okay, what would you say to that, Shalanda?
Oh, absolutely. The history is there. Not so much it being called the grandparents. They were given other names, the elders, or the ones that had all of the wisdom and knowledge. So yeah, and historically it's changed. The roles have changed, and what we do now, what we consider grandparents now, as opposed to what they were then. And just as Greg said, the roles are now trying to revert back to how it was in the traditional sense.
Can you see? Can you actually see that there's a difference in our culture and how we grandparent compared to other cultures? Have you been able to observe a difference?
Where there's
Go ahead.
where there's no acculturation, true acculturation, I see the strong example, the Black family. We would not put our parents into nursing facilities or independent living facilities. They were part of our family. We made space for them. And so when we take on the mindset of putting them out to pasture, putting them out into maybe a nursing facility, I don't care how quality it may be, it's robbing the family of that piece that they have to offer, and some of the research shows that when grandparents are around the grandchildren, it helps boost their immune system. It keeps them mentally sharp. So for our communities, that's a big difference for the most part.
Mm-hmm. What would you add, Shalanda?
Just yeah, there. I'm sure in different cultures, the roles are just probably a little different as far as how the seniors are the living, how they're respected, and just generally how the interaction is with the family as the senior elder ages. So there is a difference. I think the Black culture has a long standing with Big Mama, and Big Mama was always around, and they kept her with the children. She was always the matriarch of the family.
Mm-hmm.
So if there was ever an issue, Big Mama was always asked for her input, and most times she even worked it out for them, for the rest of the family. So
Big Mama ain't too big nowadays.
Well, that's
right, and
because we're.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Yolanda. What were
That's
you?
I was just I was just gonna say that yeah, and Big Mama's a lot younger too than she was historically speaking.
Mm-hmm.
mhm, mhm.
But I think that that has to do more with the quality of our nutrition.
Yes, most definitely.
We've been taking our time learning how to nurture ourselves and not just eat so-called soul food, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Would you
Yeah.
say that has something to do with it?
Oh, sure, absolutely. The difference, well, yes, because when I recall my grandmother, I remember her, we had gardens and we planted our food and we ate from the ground mostly. There was a lot of pork involved. Back then we ate a lot of pork. But I think that the age, the aging was a little different than now. I think people now are more cognizant of their health and eating different and better and drinking better quality water and
Mm-hmm.
getting more exercise. And I think that's helped in changing the face of grandparents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then with today's grandparents, well, let's look at yesterday's grandparents. They worked really hard. Many of them were laborers. In my family, my father worked for International Harvester. Many of the men on the block who would be grandparents and fathers, they worked hard. And so when they retired, many times they weren't around too much longer because they were just beat. And so today we're not working the same way that our parents worked. We have jobs, we labor, but we don't have to put in the type of work that they put in.
Yeah, because I can recall my grandparents, they were out picking cotton, picking vegetables out in the sun all day. And yeah, so the change is evident in what grandparents look like now.
Now,
Sure.
do you think that the role of grandparents is still valued in our community?
I think we have a generation that don't even know what a grandparent um, represent and the value of a grandparent, because when we look at what happened in the 80s, first of all, a lot of the grandparents had to become primary parents, and many of those grandparents are gone now. And when you look at the parents that are like I'm a grandparent and I have many peers who are grandparents, but many of them don't have the same value system that I have in how important the next generation is. So I think there's something interesting happening, coexisting at the same time. You have some children who are seeing the value of grandparents. Some people are reading about grandparents because they don't have grandparents.
Mhm.
We have to, so that's why we have to move away from the traditional sense, the westernized version of grandparent. It means this is the children who are in my lineage versus taking on the role of just being an elder. Like I chuckle when I have younger men see me in the community and they call me OG. And when I hear them call me OG, it's almost it's honorable
Mhm.
because they're saying they're respecting me right in the door.
Mhm. Mhm. No, I can hear that. What would you add to that, Shalanda?
I think that really the value has diminished in if I could say that, because um, literally they look at us as either babysitters or somebody that can watch kids or someone that is just available for a kid dump. And that's
Wow.
really what they look at now, and they're not really looking for any wisdom or asking for your opinions. They're more or less looking for either they want to come back home and live, or they want you to watch the children.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And so that's interesting because my children, I have said, so when my children had their children, um, I told them that I would keep them once they were potty trained and all those things. And then one day my daughter said to me, my baby girl, she said, "You a grandparent? You supposed to be babysitting." I said, "I am not that grandparent. I
Mhm.
still have a life, but I do value being involved in their lives. But I really make sure that the parents are the primary parents, but at the same time, I'm there to complement um, and really model for my children how to be a parent because I can see as a grandparent how I made mistakes. Because I didn't get the parenting manual when my children were born. Were they giving you guys parenting manuals when your children were born?
No.
Right.
no.
I
No.
parent like my parents parented, for the most part. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get the manual, but what I did get was don't parent like I was
Right,
parented.
right. So it's
Right.
interesting because when I was parenting, the things I said I wasn't going to do, I had to be conscious that I was doing them,
Yeah.
and that made me like I made it like I didn't give my children whoopings. Early on I did, but then I said this that doesn't feel right, and so I started parenting from another position versus disciplining them with force. Yeah.
Yeah. What would you say to that, Shalanda?
Well, because I had such an awesome, powerful grandmother, I had a role model to that I had always said that I was going to mimic her role because I thought she was just the coolest, sassiest uh, young lady that I could ever have been um, privileged to have known. She was full of wisdom. She knew all of the natural cures, and um, she taught me how to garden and just gave me so many pearls and gems for me moving forward as a teenager, as a
Mm-hmm.
young woman, as a mother, as a wife, and now as a grandmother. So I just think that it all just kind of ties in together and teaches us, how to be better than we were as parents. Because now you get to really sit back. When we were being parents, we were worried about babysitters, we were worried about working, we were worried about this, we were worried about that, and not really totally present to parenting. Now, as grandparents, we can sit back and be present to watching the young ones come up and making sure that our children aren't making the same mistakes. If we can tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, I would do this a different way, or give them some advices and teach them a better way of parenting. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like
Well,
my daughter came home one day and I was letting my grandson jump off the top step. something something that when I had my children, I was really trying, no, you can't play on the steps. But but I make sure the environment is right, that they don't go too high. And so they learn some things about gravity and those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
So I could have read a book about gravity, but when he jumped one particular time, he found out what gravity was. So, right. So we parent a little. I parent a little different as a grandparent.
Oh, sure.
That's right. And I was going to say, in tonight's conversation is about the power of grandparents, because a lot of times the children are missing out, the grandchildren are missing out, and even us as grandparents are missing out because we haven't been able to share the power that's instilled in that. And you've already began to speak to some of it, but one of the greatest powers that I think that we hold is assisting our grandchildren in aligning with spirituality. What would you bring to that conversation?
That's, for me, that's a big one. So I had an encounter with my daughter because she began to say to me that, Dad, you are not the same dad that raised us, because I was a pastor. But even as a pastor, I didn't have the traditional pastor's kid. My kids weren't forced to read the Bible and do all those things. Mm-hmm. This was my pathway that I evolved into without that kind of thing. And so one of the things I have to share with my grandchildren is spirituality and not religion. And that kind of a conversation that my children don't really understand. One, because they don't pay attention to me, because if they paid attention to my Facebook feeds, they will know. Like they said, Dad used to teach us that. I said, no, think back. I never taught you those things, even though Christianity may have said those things, but I never told you couldn't go to parties, or you couldn't wear pants, or you couldn't drink, or be sexual. We had different kind of conversations. So with my grandchildren, here's something I'm taking. So I got two groups. I got a group that are in like 7, 8 and below. And then I have another group that are teenagers. So this year I'm going to have a Zoom class just for my teenagers about spirituality. Mm-hmm. So they are at that place where they're beginning to develop their own spiritual selves. Mm-hmm. And I want to introduce them to the conversation of spirituality without the cloak of religion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel the same way with that. Mine are still young. Elias will be 6, and my youngest will be is 4. So my grandson we've introduced meditating and breathing, and so he does that so well. And he whenever he's faced with something, I've noticed that he'll pout a little bit, and then if you tell him to breathe, and then you want to go in, he'll close his eyes and he'll hold his little hand. It's so adorable. And he goes in, and when he comes out, he feels he's better, he's more relaxed, and he's calmer. So they've already started, but yeah, as soon as I feel, and I've been introducing little bits here and there, just to introduce them to it. But as they age and get a little older, it'll be more conversation toward aligning with their spirituality.
And the beauty about spirituality is it's a lifestyle.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. Whereas religion is something you take on certain days, and so they get to observe it. I was on Facebook with my grandson. So I'm on Facebook with all my children. I respect their pages. I don't police them. So my grandson came on and he said, Grandpa, I'm long jumping now, and I jumped this far. And so I started took that as an opportunity to talk to him about visualization. And I said, so Kwame, here's what you do. You visualize yourself jumping to where you want to jump. You visualize your form and all those things. And then he had to meet that Friday, and that late that night, I don't know why he's up at 1 and 2 o'clock. He must be my grandson, because I'm a night person. He sent me a text and he said, I am instant message. He said, Grandpa, I jumped the longest I've ever jumped before, and I jumped off my non-dominant leg. And so I celebrated that with him. And I said, life is the same way if you learn to visualize.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
so that's little things. I take the opportunity to be practical with them, with my grandchildren.
Oh, sure. That works. I'm going to write that note down because I'll be definitely adding that to my tool chest when it's time.
So I need to give my grandson Gucci the meditation piece because he's a basketball player. He gets extremely upset. And I told him that affects your entire game. So he needs to learn how to breathe in the midst of controlling the floor.
Oh,
right?
Yes.
You know, that's so great because one of the reasons Master Force even got started was inside of the premise of teaching young people about spirituality. You know, so the whole event of the Marv technique, you all remember the Marv technique?
Yes.
Yes, right. So that was part of what we actually worked with young people. So the last time that I was, well, a couple of summers ago when I was in Detroit with my grandchildren, I set them on the couch and did the same thing that you said, Greg. I sat there with them and did a session on visualization and told them to use that in school. And my one granddaughter, she said, all I get is A's. You know who that is, right?
Uh-huh.
She said, all I get is A's. And she said, I visualize it and it happens, Mima. That's what they call me, Mima. You know, and they're so much more responsive than, my children,
Yes.
because it's not mama talking, right?
Right. And those things they're so close to the example. Children use their imagination, their visualization more frequently than we do. We move them away from that. The teacher will say, Greg, what you doing? Stop daydreaming.
Right.
And she don't realize that while I'm daydreaming, the lesson is going in because I'm at a wavelength where whatever's being said is falling inside. So we have to really know that our children are hardwired already with the stuff. We have to encourage them to use the stuff.
Yes.
Yes. And I want us to really look and see, as we look at that conversation, how we are really transforming traditions. Right? Because traditionally, our so-called spiritual work was given to us in church. Or
it was hijacked, right? Right. Right. It was reformatted in a way that didn't give us the outcomes.
Right.
Okay. Right. Yeah. So, in our experience, in church didn't really help us to grow as spiritual as we had to learn. I don't know about you all, but I had to learn spirituality on my own much later than church. Right?
Yeah.
So what are some of those other traditions that we are transforming to make sure that our children are more grounded than what we were growing up?
So for me, tradition is death. Death is not an ending. So 10 years ago, Tony passed away. And so at that time, all of my children had one child. So they're all like arm babies up to maybe 4. And so Tony leaves. And so when Tony passed away, my grandson asked me one day, Granddad, will I ever see you again when you die, out of the blue? And then we were standing outside and I said, Gucci, if you ever feel the wind when I'm gone, that's me. And so what I was telling him that we disappear, but we're always present. And so helping them to have a healthy sense of the evolution of life, that we go from one state to another state, that we never die.
That's great. We need to do a whole conference on that, Greg, because unfortunately our community is being hijacked with the conversation called death.
Yes.
Because as soon as, one of the reasons we're so controlled is because they can go and start a shooting spree and drive us nuts. But if we realize that it's not an ending, we would know that person, I don't care how they died, there was an agreement in their spiritual contract. They were agreeing to that.
Mhm.
And they're still present, and we can still speak to them. We can still sit with them. We can create altars where we can get, send some energy to them and get some from them as well.
Absolutely. Yes.
You know.
As just as Greg spoke, my grandchildren also just recently lost their pawpaw, and my grandson was having a hard time with that. And just speaking with him about it, that he's still here. He'd argue me now, no, Granny, he's not here. He's not here. And I said, well, we'll revisit this conversation later on, but Papa is still here. If you want to talk to him, you can. And he's present all time. So don't feel like he's gone, forever gone. He's still here. And so that was just one of the traditions that, as before I became open to spirituality and more so religious based, my grandma, when she passed, that just tore me up. I didn't know, what to think about that. That was my best friend. She was my BFF. And I didn't know how to function after that. But I think the universe holds us all and knows, to carry the young ones and give them peace when they need that.
And so we talk to our children about the cycle of life, that you get to the place where you, like, I'm an elder and soon I'll become an ancestor. In 40 years, I'll be an ancestor because I'm going to pop out of here. I'll be 100 years old. So
that's a good way to look at it. I'm gonna pop out of here.
I'm going to just pop out of here. And so just letting them know that's the cycle. And that's why when we talk about traditions, the African traditions is not only do we honor those who have come and gone, but we honor those who are yet to come, because we know that the cycle, and we show our children the fullness of the cycle, and that will take that fear away. And it has nothing to do with you earning it. It's just, so changing that religious conversation to the conversation of spirituality is part of the evolution of things.
Yeah, and that I think that we're missing the opportunity right now if we don't, as grandparents, actually step in there. And we don't have to just do it for our grands, right? We could do it as elders.
Absolutely.
Really start making sure that our children understand that you need to pass this down to your children. Like, there is a purpose in our living, and death actually is part of that. It's not the end, and they do that in other cultures. That whole movie Coco was written inside of, teaching, Latinas, that, life goes on after death, and even that movie Soul does something similar, What were you gonna say, Greg?
And the possibility that you're coming back. We inside of Master Force, we do the work that looks at our soul paths. And many times we find that, some people are coming back to re-experience something that they didn't complete. And so to know that, hey, this is such a beautiful thing that if you don't get it right, you can come back. Matter of fact, if you don't get it right, you gonna come back.
You'll come back, right?
That could be your hell right there. Coming back with the same lesson over, okay?
And that's the part that most people don't realize. You choose to come back anytime you're so resistant to your teaching and your growth that you don't have the opportunity to actually, excel in life, right? On the spiritual side. So you get caught up in that whole wheel of reincarnation. But if you actually walk inside of a conversation called ascension, you can, evolve to a point where you say, yeah, I'm not coming back to this dimension. I'm gonna come back someplace, but not here.
Like I tell my grandchildren, you ascend every day. When you go to sleep tonight, you come back Now you can come back the same person, or you can reset and you can come back a little better than that person, or you can come back worse than that person if you harboring hate, animosity, things happen to you, wake up and you hold it. So every day is like a rebirthing, a mini rebirthing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Now, do
So
they get that when you say that to your younger grandchildren?
they don't really get it yet.
Yeah.
But you know how we learn by hearing things over and over again, and
Yes.
one day they'll get the aha moment.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I
Yes.
know I speak a lot about the power of words, that words have power. Whatever you say and speak, those things can be manifested. And I know I say that to my girls, my daughters all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
I know that I'm almost sure that my grandbabies are hearing the same thing because I repeat it every time. I mean, on every occasion at some point, I'm saying that words have power. Be careful what you say, and then speak what you need, speak what you want, and
Mm-hmm.
then we manifest it from there. So yeah, that's one of the things that I know that I do, that even though they're young right now, I still want them to get that fact that words have power.
That's
Yes.
so that's a tradition. It's about being responsible. What I
Mm-hmm.
speak is what
Yeah,
I create. Abracadabra. I
yeah,
create as I speak.
Yeah.
And if I really look at what I've been speaking, I'm living it at some point. And
yeah,
our children have to know that things don't just happen. We allow and make them happen.
yes, sure.
So just being responsible. Um, from the little one on, you're responsible for your actions. You take responsibility for them. And when you mess up, have a misstep, have a mistake, it does not devalue you. It
Oh,
actually makes you better when you if you learn from it.
that's
Sure.
very true. So now, when you look at that, and then you go into um, again the power of being a grandparent, what role does healing your own past? How does that? What does that play in your role as the grandparent? Does it make a difference?
Yes, yes. And in the fact, in the space of learning how to love, being able to love, being able to be present, um, um, being able to, uh, as I say, speak things into existence, um, being able to uh, uh, use, if I can use your words, the power of the subconscious mind,
Yes.
being able to go there and see what you want and see what you need, and think on that and send energy to that. Yes, yes. Mm-hmm. I would have to agree. Yes.
You know, and there's some teachings out there that the past is an illusion and the future, the only thing that we have is now. And so if your past, if there's things that weren't dealt with in the past, you only can really deal with them in the present. So when whatever's showing up in my life right here, right now, is probably associated with something unfinished from the past.
Yeah.
But I don't go and reverse the past,
Right.
although there are some techniques called revisioning that you
Mm-hmm.
can change that. But to stay present to right here and say, okay, I can't change that, but I can change right here, right now. What one thing can I do right now that will move me towards not experiencing this same thing at the same level,
Mm.
staying present to creating from right here, right now. And
And
so,
and then how does that? How has your doing that kind of work? How does that affect you as a grandparent? Would you say?
okay, so as a grandparent, I see the beauty of being a grandparent. When you talk about your seed, you see yourself. Like I can see aspects of myself in all four of my children. I
Mm-hmm.
can see aspects of myself in my grandchildren. And so they mirror for me the work that I can ask myself, am I completing the work? Um, and if I can do the work, and then that really puts me in a position to have that conversation with them. Like if they're afraid of public speaking, and at one time that was an issue for me. And at times it still is, even though people don't realize it. And so when I hear my granddaughter talk about having to have to do a presentation, it I can help her through it, and also she helps me through it. And then my truth, I have to say, does it really work? the things I am espousing. And if I'm telling them to my grandchildren, am I working on myself? So, mhm.
Mm-hmm.
But life has a way of showing up in the other. We in Masterful, we do talk about mirror work, and we talk about people show up in our lives. Either they're showing you something, or you're showing them something. The
Mm-hmm.
best
Absolutely.
people are the people you show them something, they show you something. Yeah. So did I answer that question?
Yeah, you know.
I'm a grandparent. I have to circle back.
I know,
Yes.
right?
There you go, granddaddy going down the lane again.
Going
Right.
down that rabbit hole. That's what.
And that's so easy to do,
I
isn't it?
know, right?
Yes. So I was thinking about this just in the raising of my own children. But how do you assist your children in establishing the village? Is there still such a thing in our culture?
Mm.
It says it takes a village. What role can you play as a grandparent in helping to establish a village so that your grandchildren know that if the parent and the grandparents are available, that there are trusted people in your circle that will make sure that is that something that the role that a grandparent can play?
Yeah, it's a little different now because our worlds are so virtual, where and our communities are so segmented. Like when I was a kid, everything was in the community. You could go to the local grocery store with mom, and you got to know all the people at the cash registers. You knew the police in the community. So our communities weren't real transient, and so it was like in my community. I grew up in Maywood, so Maywood is like 23 blocks long. And if you do something on Second Avenue, by the time you got to 11th Avenue, where I lived, maybe that person would be sitting right in front of your house to tell your mama. And, and sometimes they didn't even tell your mama. They just had a conversation with you. Young man, don't do it. And some who were close enough would give you knuckles to the head or something like that. But it was all done in love because they knew us.
Mm-hmm.
So our communities are different because we're isolated. We live next door to people we don't know. We don't trust to know our children. Where it's just totally different now.
But can you still help to establish the village even though
Yes,
it's different?
yes. So even in Facebook, so my grandkids are on Facebook, and so they have privy to my page. I'm very transparent. They can tell by how I engage certain people. They like when it's birthdays, when they show up on my page on their birthday, some people are every year they say something to them, or they'll say you're just like your grandmother or something like that. So
Mm-hmm.
that kid knows not only does that person who's speaking to them know me or their grandmother, but they know them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So proximity doesn't have to be an issue,
Mm-hmm.
and it starts with us. It starts with us letting the village know that these children are important to me. Not just my children, but I'm celebrating like your children. I'll celebrate when they do something great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Encourage them, send them a word, so they know if something was to happen to you. They already know of what part of the village they can go to tap into those who have been influenced by you, those who think like you. They know who not to tap into also.
Yes. Yes. What about you, Shalanda? What would you add?
Well, and I'm at this point right now where we're trying to establish a village because my youngest daughter has the two children, and with so many things that are going on, she's looking at so many outside things that are happening that it's really hard for her to grasp the point of allowing someone to become a village to her children because she wants to keep them close to her and only this one and those are all family members. I mean, like immediate family, and I think I have more of the responsibility. She looks to me as being the only one that can watch the children, or her sister, the only one that can watch the children. And I'm telling her, when you girls were young, I created a village. My girlfriends, the girls that I went to school with, they mothers, had stay-at-home moms, and they were reliable because you knew them, And that's how you create your village. That's how, you know, but and I get it, you know, that you know, you want to, with so much going on in the world, and we don't really speak on those things, but the things that are happening in the world will make you think twice about, you know, really allowing the whole village to encounter. But you know, energy wise, I'm teaching them how to recognize like energy. When you feel this like energy, then you know that this person is okay to play. And you know, we're working on that now. It's a struggle, but we're working on creating our village now.
And so we don't have, like, the church is not as much a part, and it's truth, even though, you know, many people, when you talk about church, they don't want to, the reality is the church is not an integral part of our village like it used to be, or not just the church, the mosque, or, you know, so people are not using that gathering as how we used it. So we have to form gatherings. We have to have celebrations. We have to see the same people showing up at those gatherings, in those celebrations, and just people dropping by. You know, that's how we build community, a true community, people who know your name, people you can trust.
Yeah, I agree. I'd have to agree with that. Yeah, we don't have as many community services as we once had before, because we're so isolated and everything is so now virtual. So we don't get that intimate connection. We don't get the physical connection, and it's a little hard in trying to create that village.
And you can't feel the villain. Like you just knew when certain people came around, that person is strange. But when you see them on Facebook, you don't feel that as much.
Yeah.
So, because people can image what they want. So we have to teach our children how to pick up the energies. You know, like if a child does not want to go to somebody, you don't force the child to go to them. At some point, you may want to observe and say, what is it about that person that child just naturally said no?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So with that being said, how do you you know, be present with them? I mean, you know, distant, how do you know, because being present is a quality that ensures that we have influence, right?
Yes.
So how do you establish quality time and being present with your grandchildren?
Well, I again, they have me on a schedule. Granny, it's your turn. Granny, Granny, it's your turn. So, and my grandchildren, they always want to come to Granny house because there's always something here. So that gives me the time, and most times I have the energy to just sit with them and be present and listen to them and let them play around me, let them, you know, jump on me, or, you know, get the energy and get the love that they need. And I think it's a great thing. I was just saying this to someone that, you know, now as grandparents, we get to watch these babies and see them in a different light than we had the same opportunity with our children, because again, we were so busy with daily life and the stresses of being a parent, working and other responsibilities that we were present to, that we couldn't really be present to our children. So now we get to sit back because of where we are in our life now, and take the time to watch them as they grow from little babies. And we don't have to be so attentive to them in the respect of we have to watch them every day and see everything that they're doing. But when we do have the time and they're in our space, we get to just sit back and watch them and just give them that time and that quality time that sometimes their parents can't give them.
Right. For me, I have a challenge because I'm the granddad, and so there's a difference with the granddad and the grandma. So, example, with grandma, if Tony would have been here, all the kids would be at the house. The girlfriends would bring the kids to the grandmother. But when early on, I felt they wouldn't, the only grandkids that I was engaging was my daughter's grandkids. Because every time my daughter's kids, every time my daughters show up, my grandchildren were with, but my son's children, by the other women, I had to go out of my way, and I'm making my business to call and check on them, because it's not that I guess it's just natural for people to take people to the children to the grandma house. and instead of bringing them to granddad's house. So I make sure that I'm present. I talk to all my grandchildren. When I come to town, I make sure I go where they are in their space, and you'd be surprised how even they don't see me that frequently, the littlest one knows me. So we have to make ourselves present to them. And for me, it did. Here's what happened to me as a granddaddy. It helped me get in tune with my nurturing side.
Yes.
Because as a father, I was the disciplinarian, and I really like it, because I told Tony that's gonna backfire. And so when Tony passed, there was a wall between me and my children, because they had been accustomed to me being the disciplinarian. So even when I try to hug them after, you can tell that they weren't comfortable with that because of the role I played. And so it's helped me to get in contact with all of me.
Wow.
Yes.
Now that's great because you literally are talking about being a grandparent. Well, you're still being a parent to your children or as a role, right? But as a grandparent, you're actually able to exhibit that love and affection more freely.
Right.
Oh,
Because that's all they will know. Whereas my children had to get accustomed to daddy listening to them instead of daddy telling them something, having all the answers. And that throws them for a loop when I would say, what do you think about that? They would
You
look at
talking
me.
about now today that
When I
throws
say that,
people?
when I say that to the adults, my
Right.
adult children, they look at me like, Dad, ain't you gonna tell me what to do? Nope. Let's talk about it. So parenting, grandparenting and grandparenting is two different fields.
Yeah.
I love grandparenting. I love being a grandparent because I feel like I'm much more a better parent as a grandparent.
Well, you made a huge point that I think you're gonna have to write a book on this one, right? So being a grandparent, you said, helped you to become more whole and complete because it allowed you to express parts of yourself that you had suppressed as a parent, right? That male image, right?
Yeah,
So you were able, for lack of a better term, to tap into more of your feminine energy,
right,
right?
right,
Or
exactly.
the
Yeah, yeah,
yin energy, and
right.
then you can freely express that.
And it makes me such a better man in a relationship with a woman, in a
Mm-hmm.
relationship with myself,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm really whole and complete. Although you're always whole, but you may not be complete
Yeah,
because you got like the left and the right instead of the brain.
yeah.
You operate from one side. So
Mm-hmm.
um, grandparenting not only helps the children,
Mm-hmm.
but it helps the grandparents do that final work they need to do.
What would you add to that, Shalanda?
well, I'd have to agree with Greg on all points. I feel the same way as that, and just reiterating what I spoke earlier about now you be more present. Um, uh, it just allows you to be young again, and being able to be free to now look at them differently, look at the younger generation a little different, and what they're bringing and what they're adding. You could see that now, opposed to when you're a parent and you've got children and you're only focused on trying to raise them and make sure that their needs are met. Now you're more, you can relax on that point and just watch these children, the younger ones, and how your children mimic you and your teachings, and help them to raise the young ones. So yeah, it's just a glorious feeling and a glorious sight to behold, just to be to be able to be present, because all grandparents aren't present and all grandparents aren't there, but just to have that experience. And as Greg said, it makes you complete, it makes you whole, because now you've almost circled, you did the complete circle of life, and it's a grand thing. Everybody don't get that opportunity.
Everybody do not get that opportunity.
Right, and we take that for granted. Yes, that's gratitude to be able to be here.
Oh, sure. In this capacity, sure, it is.
You know, I was just thinking about when you were saying that, the difference between how I grandparent, for instance, even in when we talk about high quality nutrition,
Yes.
that wasn't a part of my grandmother's conversation.
Yeah, absolutely not. Neither was it in mine.
Right? It was, you know, and even the adults that raised me, they were not into nutrition. So how do you now, how have what you know about fitness, eating, and all of that, how does that influence your relationship with your grandchildren?
Well, because I started on my journey of being after acquiring my Master Force certification, and it given me tools, I then was able to incorporate that with my fitness coaching and nutrition coaching, and I was able to uh, teach that to my girls. And so with that, my youngest daughter is also her master's degree is in exercise science. So she's already inept on nutrition and fitness. And they're seeing her exercise every day. They're seeing her drinking alkaline water. They're seeing her doing smoothies and green drinks. Right. And they're following right along with her. We've got some baby weights, some 2-pound weights, and Elias is he's lifting weights, he's doing push-ups, he's watching us, and he mimics us, and even with my granddaughter, she's flipping and doing cartwheels and splits. So they're all incorporating that fitness, and my daughter makes sure that they're getting some their nutrition is of high caliber. She's making sure that they have their green vegetables. And one thing I'm trying to work through is that they lay off so much cheese, because children love pizza. And we're trying to incorporate a new way, to a more nutritionally sound way of making pizza, and that they can enjoy. Because right now they're saying no to vegan cheese. They don't like that. Oh, but we're trying to work on that. Just keeping them away from the cheese. But other than that, they're doing really well as far as eating their vegetables. They're good with that.
So that's another transformed tradition.
Oh yes, absolutely. Because my mom, that was not a priority. That was not a priority in our house at all. So yeah.
Greg, what would you add to that?
So you see, I got quiet. I'm an eatitarian. I eat just about everything. No, when it comes to my grandchildren, I don't really speak, but I can see. I see that, wow. So my prayer is that my children come in contact with nutritionists and begin to realize what they eat is just as important as their their mental health, their spiritual health, and be more mindful of that. So I do. Now, one thing that my children do observe, I don't really do a lot of junk food. I eat out a lot, but they know I eat at tablecloths and silverware. That means I can get a piece of salmon, I can get spinach. So I usually eat the right things, though I haven't been cooking. But nutrition is so key that we have to pass that on. And so for one thing I do pass on to my children, they never see me drink, and my grandchildren. And the reason why so one of them had made mention to me, "Granddad, do you drink?" And I told him that I will drink occasionally. And the reason why I don't drink is because I want to have access to who I am when I need to have access. People call me all the time, and so I don't really need to be using some substance. So I say it into a way that is not judgmental, but I'm letting them know that you can experience life. So my area that I'm pretty healthy in is mind, mood and mind altering substances, taking them into my body. So that's a conversation I do have with my teenagers. But as far as I can do better in regards to food.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think too, because we forget that food also has a mood altering quality.
Oh, sure.
Stop
I'm just saying, sometimes we forget that.
Yeah,
it.
You
because
know,
and that you speak of that, I've just shared with my daughter the other day about too much sugar, because
yeah,
the babies, they love the popsicles
yeah.
and they want the cakes and the little pies, and I'm saying that keeps them moving, and you want to just be mindful of what you're giving them, and as far as those sweets. So yeah, that was a conversation I just had the other day. Yes.
So for so many of nutrition has not been a real conversation inside of our families because we hold on to the traditions of eating certain things.
Mm-hmm.
What would you guys say to them? Somebody who is as a parent or grandparent, what do we say to them about nutrition and what do they start?
But just like Shalanda said, that first thing would be with the sugar, because in our culture, diabetes is such a huge thing. So meat and sugar are the main culprits. So you don't want to say eliminate it, but you do want to start checking, and saying, there's a certain amount that's too much.
Yes.
And even when I was growing up, we had, sausage and bacon for breakfast with eggs, and then for lunch we had bologna sandwiches, and then for dinner we
Did
had
your bologna have a first name?
we had pork chops, fried chicken, you know, and so meat was served all, at every meal. And then if you want a snack, you had hog head cheese with crackers, you know. But then for me, I started seeing that my family literally died because of poor nutrition.
Yes.
And they
Yes.
don't realize that. They didn't realize that. And by the time I was realizing that, I didn't have the voice to say anything about it. So now, what people do, because I'm one of the matriarchs now, the matriarch, right? One of the matriarchs that gets to say, in order for us to actually extend our life, because for me as grandparents, I want to be around for a while, at least another 60 years. So in order to be that and have the quality of life that people will not have to put me in a nursing home because they
Right.
don't have time, I have to be responsible for my nutrition because that's my main source of medicine.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That is one of the things that I tell my clients when they come in for our initial session, is that you want to be cognizant of what you eat and how you take care of your body from this point forward, because you don't want to deny your children the space of being who they are, who they need to be, and allowing them to enjoy their journey of life. If they have to be responsible for you when you've done all the things that you wanted to do during your lifetime and your path, and you take away their time and space because now they have to be responsible for you, and you don't want to do that because totally unfair, totally unfair.
It's very selfish, but I know a lot of parents that actually live believing that at the end of my life, my children better take care of me.
Yeah,
Like
That's
that is the
unfair. Yes.
conversation. It's very selfish when
sure.
literally you can take on your own life right now, no
Yes,
matter what age. You can take
yes,
on, actually, we know that you can. reverse aging, by
Absolutely.
doing certain things. If you don't, you need to give us a call so we
Yeah.
can help you out. But we definitely want to be responsible for who we are as grandparents and not put that responsibility of care on our children.
I
So,
agree.
Greg, does that answer your question?
It tells me I need to be more responsible. I need to have the communicate to my grandchildren that everything that is good is not good for you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then not so much as like, I think what Shalanda says, not extinguishing it, but saying, let's do some things in moderation. And when you see the benefits of that, then it's usually when you tell someone they can't have it, that's when they want it.
Oh,
Yeah.
But
yes.
when you
Right.
can have a conversation of moderation to
Mm-hmm.
lead to ultimate life, like my children, my grandsons are athletes, and here's one better. He has acne, and I said, well, Kwame, the acne is you probably tied to your diet. You probably don't drink enough water, and
Mm-hmm.
you're changing hormonally, and so you can help that by watching what you eat, and
Mm-hmm.
so that puts them in that conversation of responsibility.
Yeah.
Sure.
And one
Yes.
of the other things I add is wash your face with baking soda water. Baking soda and water, helps too. But that's right, Greg. I think that really just even engaging those small conversations, right? Without lecturing.
Right.
Yeah.
As a father, I was a lecturer.
As a mother, I was a lecturer too.
As a grandparent, I'm a coach.
There you go.
I hone my coaching skills with my grandchildren.
Yes, yes, yes.
But speaking of that, how do you have a conversation with your grandchildren to make sure that they're prepared for the future? Like they are taking on some things that they need to take on, to actually excel in life. Are you having conversations, Greg, with because you
Oh
have the
yeah.
older one?
Well, the most powerful conversations are the conversations where I'm disclosing not just my wins, because when they look at granddad's life, they see a bunch of wins, but I have to show them the steps that were represented as setbacks, and to be able to share with them lessons learned real time,
Yeah.
uh, and let them know that even though when I was going through certain things, how I went through them, um, and not being a victim, but participating in my life,
Mm-hmm.
taking on participation, not empowering anything external to me to have control of me, but to say, this is my life. These are decisions I made. And what did I learn from it?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember telling, I don't know if you guys have heard this conversation, but I remember telling my children, I think they may have been in their 20s maybe, about when I used to party and I used to love, cocaine.
And they said, not you. Stop lying, grandma.
I haven't told my grandchildren this story
Oh,
yet, but I was talking to my children, and I just a conversation, because I think telling stories, like really letting them get to know you, is really so important. So I was just telling them, I said, but it dawned on me that people weren't like me because I don't have an addictive personality. So when it dawned on me that I was causing people that had these addictive personalities to go, they were doing more than enjoying. I was just partying, and then I just go back to school. I come to Chicago for the weekend, I go back to school. But then the lights would be off, they would lose their car, And I felt so convicted. I was still in my Christian state of mind, right? I felt like I was causing them I felt like I was causing them to stumble. I was like, oh my goodness. So I quit. I was just like, I'm not doing that anymore because I do not want people to think that, that's okay for them to live their life like that. And my children were sitting there like, did you just tell us you did cocaine?
and so they learn from that we change.
Yeah, and we grow, and but we also
Sure.
have an experience of life.
Right.
Yes.
You know, that's what I tell people. I'm not perfect, but I'm very genuine. You know what I'm saying? It was is, but it is something to be responsible for your behavior and how that influences someone else.
Yeah.
And that's who we are as grandparents. We're doing ourselves, our children, their children, and then all those people around them.
Absolutely.
When we talk about grandparents, like my mom is still alive. She's 86. So she is the grandparents to my children. And I'm
Yes.
always saying to my mother, no, we don't do it that way. Because she's grandparenting the way she parented. Like she used to make us eat all the food on our plates. Um, and so when the grandkids come over, she would try to do the same to them. And I have to stop her and say, if they don't want any more, that means they're full. And so I have to tell her, and then she looked, she said, it was good enough for you, but it wasn't really good enough for me. It forced me to do something that I didn't want to do. So so as a grandparent, I'm different than my mom because they still, many of our parents grandparented the same way they parented.
Mhm.
Man. And never stop to think, how did that affect the child?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I have a couple of questions here. So, well, let me do this first comment from Tanner. He says, "I am changing from being a lecturer to a coach with my children as well, and it makes a huge difference."
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
Mhm.
And then Audrey is asking the question, "How do you as a grandparent not cross boundaries when you see your child being mean to your grandchild?" That's a great question.
Yes, that's a great question. Um, so let's see. I always reflect back to breathing to, breathing to center and speaking with my child that that's what you need to do. Take some time and catch your breath and get your breathe deeply and think about what you're doing and how that child is going to feel. How did you feel when, of course, I was a lecturer when I was parenting and I was being so-called mean to you. So you know what that feels like, makes you feel very small. So yeah, we don't want to give that to our young babies moving forward because we know how that feels. So normally what happens with that is that she will go and relax herself and then come back and grandma steps in and give give the grandchild or the child the proper lecture, or not lecture, but the proper
Guidance.
verbiage to,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, or guidance to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm the same way. And when I see my children doing to their children something that's not effective, I would either try to get their attention and tell them don't do that, or if they're just going overboard, I jump right in and say, I didn't do that to you. Why are you doing it to her? Or
Mm-hmm.
I'll say, you remember when I did that to you
Yeah.
and how you cried? I can remember that day because it brings what you just did made me take inventory of you're a product of your environment.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Right. So we all have to be accountable. So
Yes.
I'm learning. And so here's an opportunity for me to say to my adult daughter, Courtney, I'm sorry. Now, I'm not saying it right now, but when I'm in that real space, I'm sorry that I did that to you
Yeah.
because now I can see and feel.
What that looks like. Yeah.
Right. Right. And
Yeah.
so even if
Yeah.
she don't change right now, you just put something on her mind.
Yeah. That's really great. And it's so interesting because one of the things that I attempt to do, and I'm not always successful, is to actually, allow that situation to play out, because I have to remember that that child chose that mother,
Ah, yes.
right? Or father. They chose their parents, right? And, you know, and then there are times when, later I'll speak to it, but in that moment, I usually let it play out because when that child goes home, I can't save him anyway.
Right.
So and like Shalanda, if it means that in that moment I get the opportunity to apply some guidance, I do that, but not at the expense of that relationship.
Yeah, so definitely.
You know.
So you have to. I empower. I let my children be parents,
Yeah.
unless they're doing something so detrimental
Yeah.
that would impact that child, and I'm sorry to that child won't change that.
It won't change it, and it causes, I love the word ambivalence. It causes now that child is going to disrespect you the rest of their life because of that one time
Mhm.
that you went overboard, and that's all it takes is one time.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
that's a
because
great.
I know my grandson will run to me, Granny, Granny, Granny. He'll grab my leg and won't let go whenever he's being chastised. It never fails. He's looking to me to save him.
So Audrey said, I tried that. She doesn't hear it. She spanks him and he begs her to stop, and it breaks my heart, and it is breaking this 7-year-old spirit. So, the one book that I read, because my family was beaters, we got beat with extension, we got beat with whatever my grandmother had in her hand, right? But the book that I love is called Dare to Discipline by James Dobson. And he gives an example of how to use corporal punishment, spanking or whatever, without breaking the child's spirit. And in raising my children, I had a paddle. It wasn't a belt off here. It wasn't a shoe. Although my kids used the sugar shoe, but it was a paddle or it was a ping pong paddle. But the most you could get hit was 5 times, and it was on the hand. So if it was something small, you got hit once, and most of the time it was only out of defiance. And James Dobson really does distinguish that you cannot, if you beat a child every time they do something, you're not teaching discipline. That's not discipline, because the point of discipline is for the child to actually learn how to correct themselves. So by the time they're 7, you really shouldn't have to discipline, because you have taught them that the reticular activating system comes in at the age of 7, so they know right from wrong. You shouldn't have to discipline. So I would suggest that book, Dare to Discipline by James Dobson. He also wrote one called The Strong-Willed Child, because I had to get that for my second child.
Whoa.
And yeah, so that's what I would recommend. And I think that he may have some things on YouTube. I'm not sure, because of course I don't do any spanking of the butts with the grandchildren.
Right. So I have a concern. I back in my 30s, I was a facilitator for active Black parenting, and inside of that curriculum, we had a strong stance against any kind of corporal punishment, the physical, because we tied it closely to the enslavement experience.
Yes.
Beating, we thought beating, sometimes the beating was to get the child ready for the beatings they would get.
Yeah.
But I'm a strong believer that children, if there's a relationship established from the womb,
Yeah.
conversations, taking time, having, see, that which we as grandparents have, we have a little more patience. We can sit that child down. And there's so many more ways to get a child's attention beyond hitting them. Like for me, I would prefer to get a whooping than being put on punishment. So if you want to get me, just say you're going to be in the house for the rest of the day. And tell me I'm in the house for the summer, I'm going to lose my mind. So So just I had a situation with my mother when I was about 16. She threw some keys at me, and she had did it to my brother. And then she was gonna hit me, and I grabbed her and I said, "Mom, don't do that." I said, "You don't have to hit me. You could talk to me."
Yeah.
And she just stood there. But her mother beat her. Her
That's
parents
right.
Oh
beat
yeah.
her.
That's,
And to this day, it affects my relationship with my mother
yeah.
because that person who you should be getting nurturing from
Mm-hmm.
corrects you in that way. Now she didn't do it that much, but I'm not that kind. My makeup is not. I don't need to be hit to learn. I can learn by a conversation.
But you know something else too. One thing that I have noticed in mothers that beat their sons, they tend to have an anger with the father. And I remember, coaching a young mother. It had to be maybe 20, 25 years ago, and because she literally despised her eldest son because that eldest son looked like his dad.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I remember telling her, you're not actually disciplining him because he did something wrong. You're angry at him because you had him and he interrupted your life.
Right.
Right? So you're trying to punish him for being here. So what I would recommend you do is to really find love. Don't like really at no point do you hit this child
Mhm.
because you have to get to the point of love, not just for him, but for yourself because he didn't
Mhm.
interrupt your life.
Because guess what he's going to become?
A violent
And to,
abuser,
to who?
his
A,
children or a woman.
his woman and the children.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and Audrey is saying this is exactly it. She did not want the baby, and the guy was verbally abused. But still, I love these conversations because guess what? Whether the mama want the child or the daddy want the child, the universe said, "Come in here." And,
What's the
and
lesson for everybody?
that's right.
What's the lesson
That
for
child
everyone?
came to serve a purpose, and we're going to talk more about New Earth children on Friday. So, but these children are showing up because they are wanted here. There's no such thing as an unwanted child.
Unwanted child.
Right.
Mhm.
Their parents who aren't ready, right? But I
Mhm.
promise you, the grandparents mostly be ready. you know, most of the time. Some
Most of them.
grandparents are
Yeah.
not,
Yeah.
they got to grow into it. But really, the children are here because they are needed. So I don't care how much the parents didn't want them, the children are supposed to be here. And we want to keep welcoming them. And I think that's what the grandparents, we need to form the welcoming committee, instead of always being, "Yeah, you shouldn't get pregnant. You should, wait, bring them on."
Mhm.
Especially now, all these babies coming in, we need you,
That's
Yeah.
right.
you know. So, it's so funny. I looked at the time. I'm like, "Oh my God, wait a minute. I have a couple of more questions." Okay, we had a major blow up last night, and right after our argument, I saw this post for tonight's program. So thank you. Oh, thank you. That's how the universe
That's
works.
how
Come
the
on
universe
now.
works. Yeah.
That's how the universe
Absolutely.
works because we all hooked up whether we want to
Yes.
be or not.
Right. Right.
But my final question is about generational wealth. Now, I don't know about you, but my family, my grandparents, they did not do any planning for generational wealth. How do we literally instill the importance of this in our children and in our grandchildren that, in many cultures, they do 100-year plan? Like that what they're doing today is going to live for 100 years. How
Mhm.
do we instill that?
Well, on in my family right now, we've been talking a lot about Bitcoin, and we've been talking about financial, the history of the financial and what the banks are doing. So we have that conversation, and we have it quite often.
Okay.
Um, and I was a catalyst for them opening up an account to buy Bitcoin. So we're doing that. But in the same light, with their father just transitioning a few weeks ago, and they're seeing what how that played out. They know that, and even it was a wake up call to make sure your house is in order as far as, if something should happen to you, and going forward, making sure that everything is complete and taken care of for them, so that the grandbabies can benefit from you, not only from your wisdom and your presence, but also, you can make sure that they get the proper tutelage and schooling, and they can travel and just be able to live life more abundantly than and as if you're still here, because you are still here and you are still guiding them, so
That's right.
they can live a more abundant life with that.
Because of you.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yes.
Wonderful. I love that. What would
So
you
that's
say to that? Yeah. What would you say to that, Greg?
So the whole conversation for me with my children and grandchildren is experiential. One, I'm teaching them that we are in a universe that is very giving, and there is
Mm-hmm.
no such thing as lack. And so when I hear Shalanda talk about the Bitcoins and all those things, that's part of my conversation of stewardship. That is,
Mm-hmm.
once you get it, how to keep it, how to expand it, cultivate it, but it doesn't take work and labor. So my conversation about generational wealth is to move us from, all of us as Africans in America have to realize that we came from a place of poverty. Of poverty mentality has impacted us. So you may have money in this generation, but you still talk about saving, or you don't really invest it where you need to because of how poverty impacted you. So when we got to get rid of a poverty mentality and
Yeah.
move into a mentality of wealth.
Yeah.
That wealth and riches is in my house. It's not what's in my bank account. I always have more than what's in my. I have never lived based on what's in my account, based
Yeah.
on what I've had some great salaries. My
Yeah.
lifestyle exceeds that because I generate wealth from the wealthy place. And so
Yeah.
we have to have that conversation of the power of the mind
Yeah.
to
yes.
create wealth.
Yeah.
And that way we don't labor. Because too many of us think I gotta have a degree to be rich. I gotta sing a song, gotta shake my rump to be rich. I gotta play a sport to be rich. You ain't gotta do none of those things to be rich.
No.
If you're called a wealthy, if you're called to be a street sweeper,
Mm-hmm.
you can still have the wealth of the person who is a banker.
Yeah.
When you say that my wealth is not limited to my work.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that is really great, Greg, because one of the things that I noticed, that the quality that we miss inside of that conversation is opening to receive.
Come
Yeah.
on now, right?
Right?
Right.
Opening to
Yes.
receive. We keep thinking I gotta work for it, when all you gotta do is open your hand and allow it to come forth. Allow those ideas to show up. Allow people to actually bless you. I sometimes we be so independent that we won't let anybody give us anything because it came from someone else.
We have to practice saying yes. I had an exercise with my group 2 weeks ago, and just say yes. Because I
Yeah.
automatically, as soon as I finished the conversation, somebody asked me, "Can I fix you a meal?" And I said, "No,
Yes.
don't worry about it." I said, "I'm sorry, yes."
Right.
Right. Be
Yeah,
open, especially all of us. We
Yes.
are naturally givers.
Yes.
absolutely. Absolutely.
And grandparents have to be open to receive. Our grandchildren want to give us some stuff, and I ain't talking. They want to give us the love that our children didn't. They give us. They
Yeah.
affirm us.
Yeah.
Yes, yes,
So,
yes, they
yeah,
do.
so that whole thing, that wealth thing, we have to know that poverty is a figment of our imaginations.
Totally.
We
And it
live.
was created just another control mechanism.
That's right.
Sure.
Right.
Yes.
Good.
Very good. So, it's 9 o'clock. Oh my God. And
I know, right? We could go on and on and on and on.
Because I still didn't get through all the questions, but I just want to check in with our guests and find out: do you have any burning questions that you just have to answer? I mean, ask. So, Yushes, Audrey, Tanner, is there anything that you just need to ask before we sign off? And just thank you for being here. I appreciate your energy, your time.
Yes, yes.
You can unmute yourself if you like, if you want to ask a question. Or let me see. Tanner says, this was an amazing conversation. Thank you for the energy. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Audrey is saying, yes, yes, yes. And she said, that is how it works. Okay, good. So, thank you guys. So, before we go, can you tell people, and I know that you said in the beginning what you do, but can you tell people how to find you, if you have any new programs coming up or anything that you want them to know about, and then sign out with your favorite thing?
Awesome.
Uh,
Ladies first.
well, once
Not
again,
ladies. Queens are first.
the queens are first.
Yeah.
I am currently just taking clients, and if you need me, just messenger me or send me a message and let me know, and then we can go from there. I'm currently working on a video where I'm working on hip flexors. So that's going to be posted shortly. I'm also over here making jewelry. I'm doing t-shirts and making masks. I'm sewing and making African purses. So I'm using my creative juice to carry me throughout my retirement years, and I'm in training with it right now. So I'm having a grand time right now. And being a grandmother, I'm having a grand time. So I love the fact that the universe allowed me to meet Shemsu-t and to be a master force coach, because that has given me so many wonderful tools, and I've met so many wonderful people throughout my journey, and it's just been an awesome experience. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to the king tonight.
Okay, all
King
right.
of Spades. Awesome. Well, again, I'm leading a very powerful conversation inside of spirituality. So those who are interested in that conversation, it's the place of possibilities. www.theplaceofpossibilities.com. In addition to that, I take a small caseload of individuals in my coaching practice, which is Solutions, SOU
Oh, wow.
LUNS, solutionsforliving.com, or you can just go to YouTube, Oasis Spiritual Center, and you will see there a host of teachings that I've done. So I would love to be on the journey with me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's I mean, can you imagine these are my friends?
These are babies,
I love this.
your
And
students.
yes,
Yeah,
well, you teach me just as much as I teach you. So hey, it's all good. And I want to invite you guys again. Our conversation tomorrow night will be with Tanner and Oran, and we will talk to children, talk about how do we get our young people to live outside of the matrix. So that should be a very exciting conversation from two powerful young men who also happen to be husbands and fathers.
Oh,
Awesome.
wow. Very
So,
good.
if you can join us tomorrow, that would be great. And thank you so much. And that's it for this edition of Our Children Matter. And we look forward to the next time. Thank you for being here. Good night.
Thank you.